Welcome to the opening concert of the 2021 Four Seasons of Music Chamber Music Concert Series here at Hempstead House at the Sands Point Preserve. The concert titled Winter Dreams is a celebration of new beginnings and of our dreams for the future. We dream about ourselves, what we want, who we are, and about our loved ones with gratitude. As we begin the new year, hoping and expecting a better one than the last, our dreams feed and nourish our souls. While it seems that everything slows down and almost stops in the wintertime, it's really a lovely time of potential. 13th century poet Jalal al-Din Rumi says it best with this poem. And don't think the garden loses its ecstasy in winter. It's quiet, but the roots are down there, riotous. The Winter Dreams program includes the European greats of Bach, Beethoven, and Dvorak, but it really centers around American composers. We have the first African-American composer to reach international recognition, William Grant Still. We have composers Andrew Waggoner and Yousif Sheronick, and we have three female American composers, Rhiannon Giddens, Anjna Swaminathan, and Jessie Montgomery. In honor of Martin Luther King's birthday this weekend, I have chosen to read a poem by Langston Hughes, who really inspired so many of Martin Luther King's speeches. Langston Hughes was a poet from the early 20th century and was the leader of the Harlem Renaissance movement. And this poem is called Dreams by Langston Hughes. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow. I'd like to welcome back much-loved artists to the series, violinist Deborah Buck, who will be joining me and Yousif, duoJalal. And I'd like to welcome two new artists to the roster, violinist Hyeyung Sol Yoon on violin and her husband, Gregory Beaver, on cello. We're going to start Winter Dreams with this usual starting point of solo Bach. And for this, Greg has chosen the magnificent and heroic Prelude from Bach's Solo Suite number 4 in E-flat major.
duoJalal is now going to play To Think Again of Dangerous and Noble Things by our good friend Andrew Waggoner. And Andy had two different areas of inspiration for this. The first was the Mary Oliver poem, Starlings in Winter. And Starlings in Winter is basically a snapshot of these starlings flying very acrobatically, free of life up in the air. And that is paired with the idea of human grief. Someone looking up at these starlings and wishing that they could float like their boots are leaving the air to join them and be relieved from their grief. The other idea of inspiration for Andy was virtuosity, and a particular physical virtuosity, the way that Kathryn and I play our instruments. Possibly the way I approach my frame drums, or as Andy said, the way Kathryn will ferociously play sextuplets over all the strings of the viola, possibly like lifting up into flight. And finally, at the end of the piece, there's the idea of transcendence, of transcending out of grief. So there's this really beautiful melody that Kathryn will play on the viola, and I'll be playing a thumb piano. So after such a tough year that so many people had, so many people are struggling with grief. We're hoping for some transcendence out of grief this year. Even if you hear this little melody at the end and it helps you just for a moment, well, that's okay too.
It was not until his late 20s that Beethoven began working on the D major quartet you are about to hear. During this period in his life, he was keenly aware of the enormous success of Mozart and Haydn and their string quartets. Haydn had practically invented the genre. Because of this, he first explored string writing through his string trios. Right around the completion of his Opus 9 string trio, he began to sketch out the D major quartet. Now, prior to this, Beethoven had suffered from many illnesses in his lifetime, but one of the more serious bouts was with typhus, which some say can affect one's hearing. He did indeed recover, but like we all know, had ongoing issues with his hearing. Nevertheless, he continued to compose and perform and enjoyed a great deal of success. In fact, during this time, Prince Lichnowsky believed in him so much that he gave him a quartet of instruments that included a guarneri and an amati. There are 6 incredible string quartets published in Opus 18, and even though this quartet was published as number 3 in the set, it was actually the first fully composed quartet. The 6 quartets were commissioned by Prince Lobkowitz and written over 2 years, which was the most sustained amount of time that Beethoven spent on any one endeavor. Please enjoy the first movement entitled Allegro.
This piece that I'll be playing today was written for me by a person named Anjna Swaminathan. And she just wrote the piece for me just this past year, and I played it for the first time, premiered it in Brooklyn just a few months ago. It's a beautiful work. The whole piece is about 35 minutes long. I'm not going to be playing all of that. I'm going to be playing just a movement of it. And she, Anjna, was born in Maryland and raised there, but she's also a South Indian American. And so while we were working together on the concept of the piece, and we worked very closely together actually throughout the whole progress of the piece when she was writing it, we talked a lot about my identity as Korean American and her identity as Indian American. So that celebrating those differences, living in America, were discussed a lot throughout the whole process. She has a very interesting background. She was trained as a Carnatic violinist. So she studied violin very intensely, even since she was very young, but not in the Western style, but she learned Indian classical violin called Carnatic violin. And so when we were working together, me, Korean American, but also steeped in the Western music traditions of, just Beethoven and Mozart, it was really interesting to come together and for me to learn this new way of playing the violin. And you will hear that a lot of the sounds, it's the same instrument, but a lot of the sounds are very different from other pieces that you're going to be hearing in this program. There are moments when it seems as though the voice is being covered, like this. There are moments when there are a lot of slides that happen that you wouldn't hear in Western kind of playing. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of work, and I felt very fortunate to have the opportunity to work closely with Anjna to bring it to life this past year. I hope you enjoy it.
At the purchaser's option, with variations, is a string quartet commissioned by the Kronos Quartet for their 50 for the Future commissioning legacy project. It's an instrumental version of a song of the same name by a singer-songwriter, banjo and fiddle player, Rhiannon Giddens. She is the co-founder of the Grammy Award-winning string band called Carolina Chocolate Drops, and was recently appointed the artistic director of the Silk Road Ensemble. She wrote this song at the purchaser's option after reading an advertisement in a 19th century book. The advertisement was for the sale of a 22-year-old slave who had a 9-month-old son, which was for sale also, but at the purchaser's option. And she wrote the text for this song thinking about how this woman must have felt about her life. And these words keep returning in the chorus. It's a very powerful song. The words are, "You can take my body, you can take my bones, you can take my blood, but not my soul."
I'm going to play a solo on a frame drum that I had made a while ago, and it has two small cymbals on it. And the idea with this actually came from my daughter Sarai is in the 6th grade, and she's learning about Mesopotamia, a civilization that was about 5,000 years ago, which is the exact same time of the advent of the frame drums. That's the first time we see frame drums in any depiction, was in Mesopotamia. So we started looking around. I was checking out some of her materials, and started to see some ziggurats. And I've been fascinated by them before. And a ziggurat is basically a stepped temple, or it's like, almost looks like a cut-off pyramid in which they'll put a temple on to raise it closer to the heavens. So the ziggurat that I'm thinking about in particular was from an ancient civilization called Uruk. And in Uruk was the Anu ziggurat, and on top of that was the White Temple. So the idea for the short piece is that I was wondering what it might be like to approach, maybe for the first time, the ziggurat and the temple. Maybe you would approach it with some type of ritual, and then make your way up the steps with some type of excitement, and finally getting to the top and seeing the temple in all its glory. And Anu was the sun god, so hopefully the sun will be shining down from Anu as we get to the end.
Before I tell you just a little bit about Jessie Montgomery's piece, I would like to express just how very thankful and grateful I am to Kathryn Lockwood for giving me this opportunity to perform for you all, especially during a pandemic when so many special arrangements are needed in order to make today possible. Rhapsody No. 1 by Jessie Montgomery was the first solo violin piece she wrote for herself. It draws on inspiration from Eugene Izai's solo violin works. This piece is intended to be part of a set of 6 solo works. The Rhapsody is a deeply expressive work that features a wide range of color and emotion. Before I play, I would like to read a quote by Jessie. "Music is my connection to the world. It guides me to understand my place in relation to others and challenges me to make clear the things I do not understand. I imagine that music is a meeting place at which all people can converse about their unique differences and common stories."
Good evening. Thanks for joining us for this next piece, which is the string quartet, Opus 96, named The American by Antonin Dvorak. This was written in the late 1800s, right here in the United States. Dvorak, who was a Czech composer, journeyed to this country in part to take up the directorship of the American Conservatory right here in New York, and in part to become acquainted with this fantastic new world that he was really fascinated with. There were many things about America that Dvorak loved, and this piece came out of a question that was posed of what is American music? What does it mean to be an American? A question I've been thinking about a lot recently, just as salient as it was in the late 1900s. Dvorak looked to the many different things that he saw in this country. He was fascinated by the trains, the rhythm of their running over the tracks. He was fascinated by spirituals from African Americans, Native American music, and of course the European immigrants' tradition. And this all came together in this piece. We're going to play the last movement for you, which is very joyous and really, I think, captures Dvorak's celebration of what he saw as an outsider it meant to be an American. One of the things I love about this piece is how Dvorak looked for and found things that others didn't see as being American, as being beautiful and part of what it is to be an American. You can find references in a movement we're not playing, the third movement, to the song of the scarlet tanager, a bird in Iowa that when Dvorak wrote this, he was in Iowa. I forgot to mention that earlier. You can hear the sounds, as I said, of Native American music and of African American spirituals, all things that were not really considered valuable at that time. And so it's wonderful that more than 100 years ago now that Dvorak saw this, as we do today, that so much of what it is to be American is everything that is in America. Hope you enjoy.
The last 2 short pieces are a fun and upbeat finale to our Winter Dreams program. I have chosen 2 of the 4 Danzas de Panama by composer William Grant Still, and I have asked Yousif to create a percussion part just to add a little magic. William Grant Still was a man of many firsts. He was also dubbed the Dean of Afro-American Music, and he made history in 1936 when he was invited to conduct the Los Angeles Philharmonic at the Hollywood Bowl on 2 of his own compositions. He also made history when he was the first African-American composer to have an opera performed by a major opera company in the United States and to have an opera televised on national television. He was also considered, along with Langston Hughes, to be part of the Harlem Renaissance movement. So the Danzas de Panama are based on Panamanian folk themes. The first that we're going to play, Majorana y Socavon, is of Spanish Indian dance folk music. And the other one, Cumbia y Congo, is based on African themes. And these songs are probably brought over by the African slaves who were brought to Panama at that time. So thank you again for inviting us into your homes and sharing this last hour of music with us. We hope to see you again in person for the spring concert, but if not, in this format as well. Thank you so much.